So, ladies and gentlemen, who was the biggest British musical artist of the 1980s, singles and chart hits in airplay? Paul McCartney? No. David Bowie? No. Elton John? No. Uh, any myriad of female or male singers of the era? No. Shakin' Stevens was a phenom in Britain in the 1980s, where the Welsh rocker allegedly had the greatest continued success of any single artist in the decade, pretty well in Europe. His first entry in the UK singles chart was Hot Dog in 1980, and the rockabilly star has had a total of 33 UK top 40 hits, including 4 number one singles, and during the 80s spent more weeks in the UK singles chart than any other artist. He also achieved number one singles in Ireland, Australia, Sweden, Austria, Norway, Switzerland, and Poland, as well as placing 3 albums in the top 3 UK album charts. Despite only a handful of new releases in the early 90s, the advent of the digital download age has ensured an annual return to UK singles charts for Stevens, thanks to the enduring popularity of his seasonal hit Merry Christmas Everyone, which is just as big as Last Christmas. Now, he has 23 compilation albums, 69 singles, 3 box sets, 5 video albums, and 37 music videos. Although the singer enjoyed his greatest period of success throughout the 80s while recording for Epic Records, during the 70s he was the lead vocals for Shakin' Stevens and the Sunsets, and had records issued by a variety of labels including Parlophone, CBS and Polydor in the UK, and Pink Element and Dynamite in Europe. So how did he get to be so popular? Now, according to published reports, in the UK alone, he has charted 28 top 40 hit singles, including 4 chart-topping hits: This Old House, Green Door, Oh Julie, and Merry Christmas Everyone. Aside from Merry Christmas Everyone, remaining popular during the Christmas season, his last top 40 single was Trouble in 2005, mostly a rockabilly cover artist. Now, Michael Barrett, who would later adopt the stage name Shakin' Stevens because of his movement of his legs, was the youngest of 11 children born in Cardiff to Jack and Mary Barrett. His father was a First World War veteran who by 1948 was working in the building trade when he was born, having previously worked as a coal miner. The oldest of his siblings was born in the mid-1920s, and by the time of his birth, some of Michael Barrett's older siblings had already married and started families of their own. Jack, his father, died in 1972 at the age of 75, while May died in 1984 at the age of 83. Now, he grew up in Ely, Cardiff, and as a teenager in the mid-60s, he formed his first amateur rock and roll band with school friends and became his vocalist and frontman. Extremely charismatic on stage, his band was originally named the Olympics, then the Cossacks. The short-lived band finally renamed as the Denims, and he performed gigs in local Cardiff and South Wales area. In the late 60s, he was associated with the Young Communist League and the youth wing of the Communist Party of Great Britain through playing at YCL events. At the time, the YCL was associated with several leading music industry figures, including Pete Townsend. However, Stevens' stated was because the individual in charge of booking the band's gigs was a member of the organization. In the late 60s, the official occupation was milkman, and he lived in the flat which formed part of an office block in inner city Cardiff. The office block was eventually demolished 7 years later. Now, while working as a milkman and an upholsterer, he performed at weekends in clubs and pubs. Having previously followed him as a fan and as an occasional guest vocalist, he joined the existing Penart-based The Backbeats, originally formed in 1958 as lead singer. He was spotted by South Wales impresario Paul Legs Barrett, who proposed repackaging the band as a 50s influenced rock and roll outfit under a new name. Michael Barrett agreed to choose a stage name, and so borrowing from old friend Stephen Vanderwalker, he chose Shakin' Stevens. Now, in the Shakin' Stevens and the Sunsets, there was an early break for the band, which presented himself while giving a support role for the Stones in December '69. Despite landing a recording contract with Parlophone the following year and releasing a Dave Edmunds produced album, the optimistically and prematurely titled A Legend, the group found success hard to come by, at least in their native Great Britain, though they had several hits, singles in other countries, and released 3 albums on the Dutch Pink Elephant label. The band toured Germany, Belgium, France, and the Netherlands in between UK dates. Now, because they only achieved minor sales in Great Britain, many of the Sunsets records with Stevens have become collector's items in the years following his commercial breakthrough. For example, a copy of their single Honey Don't, which was also a Beatles hit, Released in Sweden on CBS Records in 1973, sold for over £340 in 2013. The Sunsets continue to perform and still tour annually in the UK, Europe, and Australia, fronted in part by recent years by his nephew, Levi. Now, in 1977, after 7 years of constant touring and recording, Shaky, who's also been called by this time, had been spotted during a London Sunsets gig by Jack Good, who personally invited him to attend a London audition for his planned new West End musical, Elvis. 3 actors were to portray Elvis's life during the course of his show, and Stevens landed one of the lead roles, playing Elvis in his prime. In his army and film star years, with young actor Tim Whitenall covering the early formative years, and veteran 60s singer P.J. Proby taking over the part for Elvis's Las Vegas years. Now, while the rest of the Sunsets waited in South Wales, doing occasional performances with drummer Robert Rockin' Louie Llewellyn taking the frontman duties, but fully expecting Stevens to return, however, the expectations were overtaken by subsequent events. The media-wise Jack Good made sure that both the audition process and the early months of the show were widely and regularly covered by the British prime time and TV. Now, during the Elvis show's successful and then twice extended 2-year run, Stevens made numerous TV appearances, firstly on Good's revived British ITV show Oh Boy, and later in a follow-up 30-week-long series Let's Rock that was syndicated in 32 countries, including the States. The led to his first major chart success with a reworking of the Buck Owens song Hot Dog, which Owens would re-record using an arrangement created by pedal steel guitar player B.J. Cole. Now, in the late 1979, he signed what would be the most successful management deal ever with Fryer Miller, who immediately advised Stevens to sever his association with the Sunsets and continue developing a more lucrative solo career. Under Miller's hand in 1981, following the chart success of What Hot Dog and Marie Marie from the Stuart Coleman produced debut, Stevens scored his first UK chart-topping #1 with NRBQ's arrangement of This Old House. He would follow up with 10 more songs reaching the top 5, including 3 #1 hits with Green Door, Oh Julie, and Merry Christmas Everyone, While You Drive Me Crazy and A Love Worth Waiting For, reached number 2 in 81 and 84 respectively. His 84 hit Teardrops, which reached number 5 in the UK, featured Hank Marvin on guitar, and since then, Stevens has often featured famous musicians such as Albert Lee, Roger Taylor, and Bonnie Tyler in his recordings. Now, chart successes also include his album Shaky, which went #1. Shaky featured hits Green Door, You Drive Me Crazy, and It's Raining, and later Oh Julie, #1, Shirley, #6, I'll Be Satisfied, #10, and the title track, #11. Both albums were produced by Coleman. Now, and of course, Give Me Your Heart Tonight, sorry about that, was the 2 albums. Now, this was followed by The Bop Won't Stop at #21, which featured the hits A Rockin' Good Way with Bonnie Tyler, I Cried Just a Little Bit, It's Late, and A Love Worth Waiting For. In November 84, he released his first greatest hits album, featuring 3 new singles, A Letter to You, which was #10, Teardrops went to #5, and Breaking Up My Heart, #14, and the album went to #8. Now, in the mid-80s, he reunited with Edmonds and recorded an album, Lipstick, Powder, and Paint, and a Christmas smash, Merry Christmas Everyone, which was the #1 hit in 85. It originally planned release was put back by a year to avoid clashing with the runaway success of Band-Aid's charity single, Do You Know It's Christmas, to which he did not contribute, having been out of the country touring at the time of recording. In a Record Collector magazine feature, writer Chris Griffiths wrote, this was Shaky the very zenith of his powers and perhaps the breaking point of marketing overload for which was their only decline. Such concentrated commercial success and ubiquity came with a price. Now, despite Stevens' chart domination over the previous few years, he was also not invited to perform at Live Aid in July 13, 1985. The hits continued, but chart placings declined through the later 80s and early 90s. However, Stevens was one of the celebrities to appear in an advertising campaign for Heineken in the late 80s. The slogan, refreshes the parts other beers cannot reach, was confirmed in the advert as he stopped shaking after consuming the product. Now, in the 87 Let Boogie album also featured a top 5 hit, What Do You Want Me to Make Those Eyes For Me For? And the singles Come See About Me and Because I Love You. Now, it was followed by the album A Whole Lot of Shaky, which number 42 and 88, which featured the top 25 hit, True Love. And he wrapped up the 80s with the top 30 single, Love Attack. Now, of course, he took a break from recording, but still, again, ladies and gentlemen, a great live performance and a live performer and a great show, no doubt. But he's never got the respect that he's deserved from the British press or even the awards, and I'll tell you why. Under the industry awards, He won Best Recording Artist for the Variety Club of Great Britain in '83. TV Times Award for '82. He won Favorite Singer Award. Only won nominated for 2 Brits. Best British Male Artist in '82 and British Male Solo in '83. Daily Mirror, he won the Best Male Singer in '81. And he won the Gold Badge of Merit from the Irish Academy, which was formerly the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers, and Authors. But he singles, ladies and gentlemen, all the way through. Ironically, he's had a very decent personal life. He was married to Carolyn Dunn for 42 years and he divorced in 2009 after 42 years of marriage. They had 3 children together, 2 sons, Jason, Dean, and daughter Paula. Now, after their divorce, Stevens later began a relationship with his manager, Sue Davies, and he credits her with saving his life when he suffered a heart attack in July 2010. Now, he lives in Marlow, Buckinghamshire, and he's a longtime supporter of the great Welsh football team, Cardiff City. Now, unfortunately, the only negative of his career, he was caught for drunk driving in 2002 and banned from driving for 2 years and fined $400, but that's neither here nor there. But ladies and gentlemen, Shakin Stevens, you know, not to say he was a British Elvis, but I mean, the 1980s belonged to him. There was no doubt about it. And maybe Britain's love for traditional rock and roll, rockabilly, you know, it's a well-known fact. What's big in the UK is could not be big every place else. Look at the popular Robin Williams in the UK and other parts across the globe has been a hard time. But Shakin Stevens, ladies and gentlemen, when he met to these late life teeny boppers who grew up with Elvis in '57, was like 20, 30 years later, and he was doing, like, he played Elvis on stage, so he's playing a double Elvis, doing an Elvis style and playing an Elvis character. But ladies and gentlemen, you can't deny his talent. I think he'll go down as probably one of the best UK artists of all time, because what he did was, you knew what you were going to get, but he did it perfectly. And he has my great respect. So that's the story of the legendary singer from Wales, Shakin Stevens. If you like what you're doing here with our Behind the Tracks podcast, let us know in a like, comment, subscribe, or share.